Wedge gaskets are commonly used to seal windows on most residential and commercial buildings. They are the most common type of glazing gasket used on UPVC window frames. They can also be used to seal aluminium windows on boats where you can't use a square U-channel due to the tight bend radiuses of the frame. These wedge gaskets are designed to be inserted between the frame and between the glass to apply compression against the glass and hold the window firmly in place. Whilst identifying a replacement wedge gasket is a relatively simple process, we do have a large range of sizes, and the difference between each size is sometimes as little as 1 millimetre. So you want to make sure that you do accurately measure the gap that it's going to be pushed into so you get the correct product. If you get a product which is too big, you're not going to be able to insert it between the glass and frame, and if you get one that's too small, it risks falling out and not actually sealing your window. In this video, I'm going to show you how to accurately measure this gap, and I'll show you a few tips as well of how you can avoid taking an inaccurate measurement and buying a product which isn't suitable for your application. There are several different ways of measuring the gap. The first option is to remove the existing wedge gasket from one side of the window frame. You can do this by finding the end and then gently lifting it out by a couple of inches. It is best to only remove a small part of the wedge gasket from one side of the window. If you were to take it out completely, as I will show you in a moment, you may find that the wedge gasket on the opposite side pushes the window pane over, and that leaves a gap which is difficult to measure. So if I was to show you that, so you can see I've taken it out and the wedge gasket here is still quite strong and it pushes it over, so you actually haven't got a gap you can measure at all now. So if I was to put this back in, like so, I've left a centimetre at the end, so for demonstration purposes I can show you just how you would measure a small gap. You will need to get a ruler, like so, and you can hold it against the glass pane and then down onto the frame, so you can, when you measure it, you can see that that comes up at 4 millimetres. Whilst this is normally very accurate, you need to check that your ruler doesn't have a space before the first measurement. As you can see with some stationary rulers, there's actually a gap at the start here between the start of the ruler, then a gap, then where 0 comes in. So if you were to use this, you would get an inaccurate measurement because you've got about 3 mil actually at the start, which is just part of the ruler. Actually, if I put them both on here, so 0 starts here, 0 starts here. If you are able to dismantle your window frame and completely remove the glass, you may find it easier to measure the internal width of the channel and the thickness of the glass. You can then do a calculation to work out the gap either side of the window pane. So if I show you, let's remove the window pane and remove 2 wedge gaskets. We've then got an empty channel, which then we can measure. So I'm going to use my vernier to measure the internal width, and that is, say, 11 mil. And I can use the vernier again to measure the window pane, which is 3 mil thick. So from these measurements, we know that the internal width is 11 mil and the perspex is 3 mil thick. So if we were to deduct 3 mil away from 11 mil, we get left with 8, and divide that in 2 for either side of the window, we've got a 4 mil gap either side. So we've got a 4 mil gap for a wedge gasket. We then have our 3 mil thick perspex, and then we've got a 4 mil gap for another wedge gasket. Adding those together, 4 plus 3 plus 4 equals 11. This method may not always be possible to do for large UPVC windows where you're unsure about taking a 1 metre by 2 metre window pane out of your house. It is usually best suited for smaller windows such as those in aluminium frames on boats, like those that are fitted into channels such as this. It may be possible on UPVC windows, but I would prefer, and it would be best, to use the previous method of using a ruler to measure the gap just by removing a small bit of one of the wedge gaskets. We offer 8 standard sizes of wedge gaskets designed to fit different gaps on different frames. These range from wedge gaskets designed to fit a 2 mil gap up to wedge gaskets designed to fit into an 8 mil gap. All of these products are available by the metre from our website at sealsdirect.co.uk. So you can order just a couple of meters if you just need to do one window, But we also sell them by the bucket, which usually contains about 150 to 200 meters if you need to do a larger quantity.